Hello and welcome to The Learning Lounge, iHasco's monthly podcast series where we delve into a variety of subjects as we look to uncover opinions, expertise and experiences with our studio guests. Our intention is to provide some thought-provoking discussion and debate, which we hope you will find engaging, interesting and insightful. Today, we'll be looking at the value in values and how strong company values can nurture business growth. We'll be speaking to our guests about business values, their importance, how they can underpin a business's culture, and how to set values and bring them to life in a business. Introducing our guest panel today, we have Linda Jodrell, Chief People Officer at Citation Group. Linda, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for coming along. And we have Darren Drinkwater, Client Success Director at iHasco. Darren, hi.
Hi, thank you.
Guys, it's great to have you here today. I can't wait to get stuck into hearing all about, obviously, your experiences, your careers, and obviously, everything that you've been through to get you where you are today, and hopefully impart some great wisdom to our audience as well. So, business values. Darren, let's just start off if we can. We'll do a little introduction. Can you just tell us a little bit about your role? What does a client success director do? And how do values sort of shape your role as well?
So this role, it's really about the customer. So I know the clue's kind of in the job title, but it really is about bringing the voice of the customer in. So every conversation we're having internally, whether that's a recruitment conversation, whether it's product, pricing, what would the customer say? What does the customer need? What does the customer want? Bringing that in and enabling the team. So I am here to support our customer care team, enabling and empowering that team to be able to continue that message across the business. One of the values that the team kind of bring into that conversation is owning the moment for the customer. So you don't own the customer, but you own that moment. So no matter what that customer is going through or whether we're thinking about changing, we're always bringing that voice in and just making sure that as a business, we really do place that customer at the heart of what we do.
It sounds like a very important thing to do, especially for a business like this as well. But Linda, what about yourself? Chief People Officer, tell me, what does a Chief People Officer do and what are the kind of values that you take into your role?
I feel like, I guess most businesses, their biggest asset, most expensive asset is their people. It's the one asset in business that you can grow and nurture that doesn't depreciate. So the whole purpose of my role is how do you attract, retain and grow great people? I've been in HR since leaving uni, so over 25 years now.
Wow.
I am surprised and delighted and stretched kind of every single day. But it's culture and values that made a real difference to your ability to attract, grow, engage, retain your colleagues. So I feel very strongly about it because it's a fact. It's not pink and fluffy. Mm-hmm. It is a fact.
Fantastic. Yeah, it sounds like values are both incredibly important to both of your roles. I think we can get stuck into some really good insight with this one. So let's just break it down for everyone who's listening and watching. So what are business values, Linda?
Okay, so they're quite intangible. So imagine a value is a label that you give to a group of behaviours and actions that you want to see in your business, how you want colleagues to behave, how you want customers to think and feel about you. You don't see values just like you don't see attitude. What you see is how do people act? How do people behave? So the importance of values is they should underpin and direct and guide everything that you do.
Right. Okay. And so what are sort of some examples that you might give of values that we can...
So here's an example where it's so important that the value is a label, the important bit and the legwork comes in explaining that and bringing it to life. So loads of companies may have a value of we want to be innovative. So they may pick a value around innovation. But that could mean really different things to different businesses. In one business, it could be about evolution and process improvement. In another business, it could be about revolution. Mm-hmm. So you've really got to bring to life, what does that mean? And actually, how are our structures set up to allow people to be innovative? Because if you say you're innovative, but actually people get in trouble if they take some calculated risks, then actually you're undermining that value.
Right. So it sounds like it's very important that it's not just buzzwords.
No.
It's actually very thought through. There's structures in place to enable the things, the values to be able
really,
to.
really important. And actually, you're better not having any unless you're going to put the legwork into making sure that they live and breathe. Because look, we're all employees, we're all colleagues, and let's say your business has got a value of teamwork, but in practice, the lone wolf who tramples over everyone else to get results, gets rewarded, gets listened to, gets recognised. As a colleague, that value is quite destructive, and I feel quite cynical about it. And you're just paying lip service to it. So unless you're going to put in the legwork, there's no point having any.
Yeah, amazing. And what about company culture? How does that differ from values? I mean, if someone's thinking about this, just trying to work it all out, what is company culture when it compares to values?
So imagine the culture is even more intangible. So culture, imagine it is like air. It's everywhere, but you can't actually see it. Quite often you only notice it when it becomes polluted. And we all know that trying to change polluted air is quite a challenge. So culture is everything. And what I mean by everything is what we write down, but quite importantly, what we don't write down. We can have a policy or a framework that says one thing, but it's really how do we do things around here? How do we engage with each other? How do we think? Who gets recognised? Who gets listened to? Who gets rewarded? Do we say one thing but do something completely different in practice? So it's the sum of your informal, formal systems. It's who we recruit. It's about how we interact with each other. So you can get a really good feel for a place. If you walk in and you were met with a grumpy receptionist that either growls at you or ignores you, and then you walk into the kitchen and there are signs everywhere that say things like, this coffee is for managers only. That tells you a story. And then the language that an organisation uses, if it's shouty tell, capital letters, with exclamation marks and things that are underlined, we've all seen them, that says, okay, this is quite a top-down culture, that we're going to have a bit of an adult-child relationship. So it's all of those, quite often, non-verbal cues that make you say, is this me or is it not me? And it's the stories that we tell. And we know that stories grow arms and legs and they live and breathe for years and years. That either reinforce the culture that you want or actually shine a light on the culture that you don't want. Values can underpin, so imagine them like they're part of your foundations. So it's a part of the concrete. So if you put in place really strong values, they can help bring to life and make visible parts of your culture. So they kind of go hand in hand. You need both of them.
I mean, it sounds almost like if you were to compare a company to a person, it's like the culture is almost like the personality, something which is born over time. So it's very hard, and it's very hard to change someone's personality, right? But it also is kind of informed by their personal values, for example. Like, would you say that there's something in that kind of?
I think it's a really good way of explaining it. And if you think about your personality, there's so many factors and experiences that go into that. You know, did your parents say one thing, but were you actually allowed to get away with it? Because it's about how we do things around here. And there's so many things that influence that. So I think personality is a really, really good way. And it helps you see that it's not that easy to change, but you can shape it. You can shape a person as long as they understand the why and they buy into it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure a bit like sort of, like you say, nurturing a person and a personality. It's not about nurturing your people. It's about giving them the tools and the things within their experience at a company that will help them change over time, potentially.
I think so. And we spend most of our waking life at work. We spend more time with our work colleagues than we do often our family or friends. I don't believe anyone wants to come to work and be miserable. They absolutely do not want to be. But things shape us, and quite often it's a unwritten culture that shapes us, how we feel, and therefore how we perform.
Yeah, 100%. And Darren, we've talked about values, obviously in terms of just your recruitment process to come to the company, but in your role, dealing with clients, managing client success, and giving clients a voice, how does company culture sort of play into that for you? And what was your experience? Because obviously you can see the values or you can test the values for your interview process, but from working here and being at the company, how have you noticed the culture, or have you noticed the culture, and how does that play into your role as well with how you deal with clients as well?
Yes, culture. When Linda and I were talking about culture, I think it was yesterday. Linda sort of mentioned you can get that sense from the moment you walk through the door. Is the receptionist really grumpy? Are there signs up on the wall? And I can say that when I walked through the door, we have an amazing office administrator here. Her name's Kaz, and she recognised that I was scared. I was petrified. I'm here for an interview. And from that moment, she's like, let me get you a glass, let me sign you in. And you're like, yeah, okay. They've got value. This is that culture. When I think of culture, it's something that's through the core. Really difficult to change, difficult to build. It takes time to mature. When you look at a baby, you don't think it's got much personality, but as it matures through being a child, teenager, into adulthood, that personality, that culture sort of comes through. One of the cultural elements within the team that I support, and it's across all of iHasco too, is that being empowered to do something, that see it, own it, solve it approach. So if you don't have that as a genuine culture, and you're saying to people, hey, if you see a problem, yeah, own it. Just, it doesn't mean you have to do all the work, but you see it, you do something about it. It could be something for the customer. You're seeing that we could be about to make a change, or we have made a change, and it hasn't had the best impact on a customer, or actually it's had a phenomenal impact. But you can own it and solve it, and you can work that through. If you have that as a culture, but you don't live it, it's not actually part of your culture. And then you start to undermine that, and people act because you've told them, hey, this is a culture, go act like this. And they do, and you reprimand them, you cut their legs out from underneath them. Really quickly, people realize that's not, they can't do it. They're told, yes, you can do this, but the reality is, no, you can't. Don't ever dare tread over that line and do that. We don't have that here. So within the customer care team, that culture of, yes, see it, own it, solve it, just get stuff done. It's better to address, kind of own that moment for the customer, and then come back internally and go, I might have done something. Can you help me out? Make sure that we're going in the right direction. And we absolutely see that with our teams. Not just within customer care, it's across the whole of iHasco. But it's brilliant to see that every single day.
That's awesome. Yeah, it really sounds like there's a nurturing of and fostering of a good and supportive culture, and that kind of encouragement for people to like you say, to own it, to not be afraid to do something like that and fear repercussions, which you might at a company with a different type of culture, right?
Yeah.
Just moving on to business values and the importance of business values. I think it'd be really good for our listeners and our viewers to, if they're maybe running a company of their own and they're thinking about how to set values, how to come up with them, because, like you say, you don't want them just to be buzzwords. You really want them to come from a place of authenticity, right? And something that you can realistically implement. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about the importance of business values, and maybe we can give some of our listeners and viewers some takeaways, as to how you might go about implementing them as well. So Linda, just starting off, why are business values so important?
Okay, so as we said before, they can guide and actually dictate how people behave. Culture and values are now within the top 3 of what employees look for in a business, and we've just heard that
first-hand experience,
from Darren. It's really important to people. They can help create a environment of high performance because the values guide people. They know that they live and breathe in practice. The culture supports that in terms of who gets rewarded, who gets progressed, who gets promoted. And actually, that's where you can get high performance as a result of really engaged colleagues. So that's why they're really, really important to a business. And customers feel them, right? So I thought I'd give you a couple of examples to bring it to life of some businesses that we will all know, we've probably all used, that are very different. And I, as a customer, see those values in practice. So the first one I've picked is Ryanair. So look, love them or loathe them, they, in terms of, are seen as Britain's best value airline. And their whole purpose is around low cost on time flights. So what might their values and culture be? Who might they want to recruit? Who might they want to keep? If you look at their values, it's all around efficiency, hard work and determination. And you see that in practice. You don't get bags and trays on the back of your seats, do you? And that's all about efficiency, and it works, and they're really, really successful as a result of that. Then at the other end, let's take John Lewis, that now includes Waitrose.
Mm-hmm.
Their values are all about delighting the customer. They're about teamwork, and we know that at John Lewis, you're a partner in that business, and ownership. So very different values, but they both come through in how that business behaves, how we feel them as a customer, and actually both really successful businesses. So in terms of working out what matters to you as a business, the leadership team should absolutely have a clear view on what's really, really important. And sometimes that's hard to work out. So actually think about behaviours you don't want. Sometimes it's easier to start with, this is all the stuff we don't want. And it helps you really define, okay, what do we want then? What do we care about? But don't just look at it through the business owner's eyes. You need to think about it with your hat on as an employee, because you want them to buy into it, with your hat on as a customer, with your hat on as an investor. What's really going to matter to you? What's going to make you as a point of difference in the marketplace? What's going to help you grow? What's going to help you overcome challenges? So you've got to start with the things that matter. And then the next point, though, is don't be fixed in that view set, because you need to involve people. People support what they help build, right? So in an ideal world, you would involve all of your stakeholders. That's probably not practical. So pick your role models, pick your champions, because then you can bring to life what good looks like and involve them, because then you've already started that change process to embed them. Because I can see that, hey, you're a kind of great values champion, and I can see what you do in practice at work, and I can see that you're recognised by it. I can hear how you talk to customers, and I can now start to mirror that, because behaviour breeds behaviour. So involvement. But then, as we said earlier, generally your value is a label given to a set of behaviours and actions. So the next step is make them explicit. Have effective and ineffective behaviours. So you don't need to explain what that value means. Like we have in our set of effective and ineffective, one of the ineffective ones is someone that huffs, tuts and rolls their eyes. So we really, really bring to life that body language of what we don't want, but then what we do want. That's built into recruitment process. Who do we recruit? It's built into one-to-ones and performance. So it's not just about objectives. It's about which values do you portray most. And people will always be stronger at some than some others, and will need development. Don't reprimand. And it's built into who we promote, who we recognise. So doing things like annual colleague awards to really highlight those values champions, because it sets the tone for people.
Fantastic. That's great. And it sounds that I can imagine some people might be watching this and thinking, well, I need to give up on, say, business results to foster, to focus more on people or focus more on culture and setting values. I need to sort of think less about the bottom line and think, more about taking care of people and trying to breed a more positive culture and everything. But how would you say the relationship actually is between sort of having strong values and business growth? And can strong values actually foster business growth?
Yeah, look, it's a fact that they do. So If you want a culture of high performance, actually what you need to do is create an environment where you've got highly engaged colleagues. And that is where people release their extra discretionary effort because they want to, not because they're told to. And that's where you get high performance. You look at every bit of research, from the Harvard research to the IRS in the UK, and what you will find is that businesses with highly engaged colleagues outperform their peers, importantly, consistently and sustainably for decades by 25%. Now, that can be on business growth and profitability. That's on lower rates of sickness and attrition. It's on higher rates of customer retention and quality. So they go hand in hand. You control the inputs in a business to get the outputs of growth or whatever it is that you want to achieve as a business leader. And one of those inputs is your culture. So your starting point with that is, what values do we really need to achieve what we want to achieve?
Fantastic. And this leads me kind of nicely onto my next topic that I wanted to talk about, which is how business values can change over time. And it sounds like Darren came in at kind of a pivotal point where the values had looked to need to be adjusted or tweaked or changed. Linda, can you just talk us through how you go around sort of identifying that values might need to be changed? Because it's a big decision as well, isn't it? And a lot to implement. Just talk us through how a company might see that values need to be tweaked, changed, adjusted, and then how do you go about implementing those?
Okay, so your start point is it revolution or evolution? So if you haven't got the culture that you need to grow, it's probably more revolution that you need. For us as a group, it's evolution. So actually it is the norm that every 18 months to 2 years, the values are reviewed.
Oh, that's interesting. So literally put it on a timeline so you actually can see we're always going to come back to this. Let's just check, look at some of these metrics and see.
So they evolve. Look, we say as part of our behaviours and what we value is about agility and innovation. You kind of can't say that if there are values from 10 years ago and they do not change. So they will evolve. So it is just standard now. We used to involve all colleagues. Kind of day one, we've got over 2,000 colleagues now, so you kind of can't involve everyone in that tweak and update, but we involve key champions in it. And actually, therefore, part of the communication is, this our business strategy, here's why, here's how, and actually then there's a whole development area around what do these actually mean in practice. We update them then from the end-to-end colleague life journey, from recruitment to one-to-ones, to annual awards, to recognition. Yeah, so no, look, I guess it's more of it's just part of what we do now. It doesn't require as much thinking or effort because it's just the norm for us. But for other businesses, always review them anytime there's a significant change. If there's a change in your business strategy, if there's a big change externally, if you're not getting what you think that you need, but hold the mirror up and go, are the values okay? And is it us as business leaders that aren't living and breathing them before you decide to change them?
It sounds like valuing your values is important, not just setting them and letting them, look, we did them and we set some nice stuff up, a couple of years ago. So it's such a good takeaway, I think, for our listeners and our viewers, just to sort of for them to know that it needs to be a constant process, a process that's on a timeline, that's always under review, and that they have whatever that might be, a task force or a team that will go in and really review each one and see how they're performing and if they need to be adjusted.
Absolutely spot on. And look, it can take a lot of time and effort. It can be painful as well, in terms of getting some people to change. But if you think how much time in a business you may spend telling, coaching colleagues what not to do, what to do, reacting when there's an issue around behaviours, values actually save you time in the long run. Because if you set that out and start really clear expectations about what is okay and what's not okay, the culture rejects people that don't behave in line with those values. Just as Darren said earlier, that politics, he voted with his feet. But if someone joined here and they start with office politics, colleagues will just reject them. So they save time in the long run.
Yeah, no, it's fascinating. And it sounds like there was a bit of a review that went on just before maybe Darren had joined, and maybe when you started looking for that. Can you just talk us through, just from a case study perspective, just into that period of time, and what it was that you did to analyze what it was you spotted, and then what you went to do to change?
So we're a highly acquisitive group, so we'd acquired quite a lot of businesses at this point. And actually, you look under the hood, and the behaviours and actions of the values were very similar. So part of what we do when we look at a business to see if it'd be a good fit for our group is also around that cultural fit. But they had different labels, so the values had different labels. So we actually did it as a whole kind of group review of all the different businesses to say, well, where are we going as a business? What works? What needs tweaking? And actually what just doesn't work anymore? And over time, have we lost sight of some things that are really important? Or do we just need to polish off some of the values and make them a bit more shiny? So that people can really see explicitly what really, really matters without much explanation. So we did that by involving leaders and colleagues right across the business, pulling them together. So the start point was, right, we've got 10 different sets of values here from all of these different businesses. And then drawing the line of, well, actually, these are the same behaviours, same actions that we want. And then it was going through a process of, well, what labels do you give them? What's that catch-all? And what labels make them stand out to colleagues? What labels can we give that make them a bit more unique, a bit shinier, and a bit more up to date? And again, that was done by collaboration, by some fierce debates about what we didn't like and what we do like.
Which is great, right?
It's
To have,
really,
you've
really
got to have
important.
debate in this situation.
Really, really important. I remember that there was one, and I started going, I hate it. And you've got to go through that process. And sometimes you'll see one and just go, everyone just goes, we love that. We love that. And look, one of my favourites is, and this is where we were talking about empathy and being kind rather than nice, in line with growth. And how do you engage with each other? And this includes customers, but also you need to be smart about it as well. Judgment and decision making. And actually the term we came up with is smart with heart. And I love that one because I think it says everything. So as Darren was talking about customers before, be smart, own it, but show some heart as well. And I think it says so many different things around the behaviours and actions that we want to see. So yeah, that was the process we went through. We then did on-site, face-to-face sessions with all colleagues, explaining what they meant in practice. We'd got some great merch to bring them to life. The important bit, though, was building them into your recruitment process, your onboarding process, training for managers to begin with, because they are your role models, aren't they, for them? And then updating reward, recognition, policies, procedures. So you've got to build it into the formal and informal.
Communicating values to your employees and getting people to buy into them, that feels like, it's already been a tough process up to this point in terms of setting them and debating which ones to go with. What's the process, and what are the sort of tips that you might have for getting your employees to actually buy into them and to really communicate them in a way that's effective? What would you say for that?
It's not a tell, and it's not a do it once and job done. So that communication, it's the why. Why are these important? Why do we care about them? It's really, really important as a start point. What are they? But actually, importantly, what do they mean in practice? So look, people remember how you made them feel much more so than words that are written down. So tell stories, give examples of your advocates and champions about what you want to see more of and less of, but always bring it back to the why. Explain that this is evolution, that people will be stronger at some than others, but it'll be built into development programs and one-to-one programs, because this is about how do we all get better. We've all got flaws. We're not all great at everything. So just take some ownership and lead from the front in that. But then it needs to be the norm that you talk about them. It can't be a one-off job done.
Fantastic. And Darren, when it comes to your role, having had the values, the culture, the values especially communicated to you, and that you have bought into with regards to the company, how do you go about making sure that those who are under your direction and who are reporting to you, how do you make sure that they're bought into it from your perspective? And how do you sort of keep that in check, if that makes sense? Because obviously no one's ever going to be perfect every time, but what kind of techniques do you sort of take into your role to make sure that people stick to the values?
Yes, I think Linda's already touched on this. A key part is that you're constantly talking about them, that they're not just this abstract thing. So sometimes that's talking about them formally. So on a monthly basis, when we're nominating champions that represent the values, you've got that kind of more formal side, but then every single day when somebody is interacting, could be with the customer, with a colleague, one-to-one, one-to-many, you're observing, and equally you're being observed. Are you living those values? Is somebody looking at you and saying, yeah, choose right, which is one of our values? Absolutely on there. Did they make it happen? Another one of our values, which ties into that, see it, own it, solve it. Kind of getting stuff done that we spoke about earlier. So it's that. I mean, if you see something or a behavior that's perhaps starting to go off track, pick it up with that individual. Understand, be smart with heart, try and understand, is it something that's happening for them, with them, and then just kind of course correct where needed, not harshly, not in public, not kind of jumping down anybody's throat. Always trying to understand where they're at, what's driving that. We have fantastic execution of these values and behaviors. So it does stand out if somebody starts to kind of just wander a little bit off of those, which does kind of make it easy to then get with that individual, like, hey, what's going on? How you feeling today? Something not up, it's not right. And then just that gentle nudge, that gentle reminder, and people immediately go, yeah, I get it. Absolutely. And they're back on board. They're that intrinsic to everything that we're doing.
That's great. I mean, it sounds like it's a marathon, not a sprint, and it's something that constantly needs to be worked on, right? Across the board.
And it's not, I would say, it's not just one directional. It is bi-directional. So everybody in the teams that I work with and support on a daily basis, they're absolutely looking at me. And if I don't live those values, if I'm not displaying them, they'll look at me and be like, hey, and they'll call me out. Maybe it's too harsh a term. They'll kind of like, oh, no, we'll call it out. They'll be like, stop it. That's not right. And I love that.
We've got that relationship. You're only human as well, right?
We've got that relationship in the team where you can be open. There isn't a judgment. You're not going to get your head bitten off by saying something. Job titles don't mean that within our business. Or I can't speak to that person. They've got this job title. Or actually, I think they've crossed the line, but I can't say anything. It's like, no, you see it, like you call it out. So it's bi-directional. So everybody's holding each other accountable to those same values.
So Linda, final thought from you.
Look, just that, there's quite a lot of effort and work that goes into it initially. You save so much time, but not just that. It's just a nicer place to work. We're all human. I know the kind of environment that I want to work in, and most people have pretty similar values. So there is work in it, but actually once you put in that legwork, you reap the benefits.
Absolutely. Well, thank you both so much. I think we've all learned so much about how important values are, and I hope that our listeners and viewers know that it's not a crazy thing to be able to implement those values, and actually that they do also drive business growth. So maybe if someone's got a different opinion on that, it's time to relook at that and see, obviously, as we've seen with iHasco and Citation Group, just how impactful setting good and have values and having a positive company culture can really be for the business as well. So like I said, big thank you to our guests, Linda and Darren. Thank you so much. It was an absolutely fantastic conversation. And thank you to everyone who's been watching and listening. If you'd like to listen again or share this podcast with colleagues, please visit the iHasco website or the YouTube channel where you can listen on demand. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.